Welcome to Module 3 of our research course. My name is Jophy Lin, and today we'll be focusing on the basics of writing a research paper. It might feel overwhelming at first, but with the right guidance, it becomes a manageable process, and even a rewarding one. Let's start off with an introduction. So, what is the point of a research paper? Well, a research paper serves three key purposes. First, it contributes to knowledge. The paper advances understanding in a specific field by presenting new findings, theories, or insights. Each paper adds to the ongoing conversation within your discipline. Second, it communicates your findings. A research paper is a way to share the results of your work with the academic community, allowing others to learn from your research and build upon it. Your findings might inspire new questions, further studies, or even practical applications. Finally, writing a research paper supports academic and professional growth. Engaging with scholarly discourse helps enhance your academic reputation, and sharing your work opens up opportunities for collaboration and recognition in your field. When writing research papers, it's essential to structure a paper well, and there are several reasons behind this. First, it enhances readability. A clear structure makes your paper easy to follow and allows the readers to quickly grasp your research and findings. Second, it ensures logical flow. A well-structured paper guides your readers step by step through your argument and findings in a coherent, organized way. It also supports strong argumentation, as each section of your paper plays an important role in building and supporting your thesis or research question, helping you make a persuasive case. A properly structured paper also facilitates peer review and evaluation. Reviewers can more easily assess the quality and rigor of your research when your paper is well organized. Finally, structure improves the communication of ideas. It helps you convey complex concepts clearly and ensures that your key messages are understood by your audience. So in short, structuring your paper is crucial for making your research accessible, persuasive, and professional. Now, let's discuss the best practices I have on writing each section of your paper. Keep in mind that these are typically the core sections of a typical paper, and other guidelines may vary journal to journal. First is the title. The title of your research paper is very important because it's the first thing readers see, and it sets the tone for your work. There are many things you should focus on to create a strong, effective title. First, focus on specificity. Your title should accurately reflect the core focus of your research. Avoid vague titles like A Study on Plants, because it doesn't tell the reader what the research is truly about. Instead, be precise. For example, a more specific title could be The Impact of Light Intensity on Photosynthesis Rates in C3 and C4 Plants. This title clearly tells the reader what variables are being studied and what type of plants are being involved. Next, consider conciseness. A good title is brief, but still includes key terms related to your study. You don't want to keep your title so that it's too long or wordy, but it should still give enough detail. For example, an investigation of the effects of variable light conditions on the process of photosynthesis in different types of plants is unnecessarily long and can be shortened without losing meaning. A concise version like effects of light conditions on photosynthesis in C3 and C4 plants still communicates the core idea without being too wordy. Finally, make sure your title is reflective of focus. Your title should give readers a clear indication of your research scope and the main question or topic you're addressing. For instance, instead of something vague like diabetic retinopathy detection, a title like The Influence of Uncertainty Estimation Mechanisms on Diabetic Retinopathy Detection provides a clear, specific research focus and makes it easier for readers to know if the paper is relevant to their interests. Next is the abstract, which is one of the most important sections of your research paper because it provides a concise summary of your entire study. Here's how to write an effective abstract. So first, you want to focus on summary. Your abstract should condense the most critical aspects of your research, which includes your research objectives, the methods you use, the key conclusions you found, and your overall conclusions. Next, keep an eye on your word count. Aim for 150 to 250 words, which forces you to be concise and make sure that each sentence adds value. An overly detailed or too short abstract can misrepresent your work, so you want to strike a balance. Another thing is clarity. Make sure your abstract is easy to understand, even for readers unfamiliar with your research area. Avoid jargon or overly technical terms. So, for example, instead of writing something like, this research employs a heuristic based algorithm for dynamic task scheduling in distributed systems, try simplifying it to something like, this research uses a specialized algorithm to efficiently schedule tasks in complex computer networks. Remember, your abstract is the first thing most readers will see other than the title, and it often determines whether they'll read the rest of your paper. So make it as clear, specific, and engaging as possible. Now, let's talk about writing an introduction. The introduction of your research paper is critical because it sets the stage for everything that follows. Here's how to craft an effective introduction. First, focus on contextualization. You need to provide background information and context for your research. This helps readers understand the broader landscape of your topic. For example, if your research focuses on AI in education, you could briefly explain the recent developments in AI technologies and their applications in personalized learning. This gives your readers a foundation to understand why your research is relevant. Next, you want to clearly state your problem statement. This is where you define the specific research problem or question your study aims to address. Be direct and precise. For instance, instead of saying technology impacts education, a more focused problem statement could be, this study investigates how AI-driven personalized learning tools impact student engagement in science classes. This makes it clear what your research is trying to solve. Finally, outline your objectives. These are the specific goals or hypotheses that your research will explore. For example, you might say, the objective of this research is to measure the effect of personalized learning tools on student engagement, with a focus on comparing traditional methods to AI-driven tools. This sets the reader's expectations for what your research will cover. Structurally, your introduction should start with a broad and general topic and then narrow it down. Begin with an overview of the general topic, provide relevant context, and then narrow in on your specific problem and objectives. Also, emphasize the relevance of your research, why it's important, and how it contributes to the existing body of knowledge. In summary, your introduction should essentially set the stage, clearly define your problem, and outline the research objectives, guiding your readers into the core of your study. Next is the literature review, which is where you situate your research within the broader academic landscape. It shows how your work builds on or diverges from existing research. To help guide you through this, we've also filmed a dedicated video on how to conduct a literature review. So if you haven't seen that yet, feel free to go back and watch it for a deeper dive into this process. When it comes to structuring your literature review, you have a few potential options. First, you can use thematic organization. This means grouping related studies by themes, methods, or findings to create a cohesive narrative. For example, if your research focuses on AI in education, you might group studies based on how different AI tools impact student learning objectives. By organizing studies around key themes, you can provide a clearer picture of how existing research relates to your topic. Another approach is organizing your review in chronological order. This shows how research in your field has developed over time. For instance, you could start with early studies on educational technology, then move on to more recent developments in AI and personalized learning tools. This approach highlights trends and gaps that have emerged over the years. For writing your review, make sure it has logical flow. This means making sure your review transitions smoothly between different studies and ideas and lead naturally to your research question. Each study you discuss should contribute to building the context for why your research is necessary. In simple terms, your literature review should clearly position your research within the field, whether by grouping studies thematically, chronologically, or both, while maintaining a logical flow that ties everything together. After your literature review comes the methodology. The methodology section of your research paper is where you provide a detailed account of how your research was conducted. The goal is to be clear and thorough enough that other researchers could replicate your study based on this description. When structuring your methodology, focus on these key components. First, describe your study design. This is where you explain the overall framework of your research, such as whether it was experimental, observational, or another type. For example, if your study tests the effects of a new teaching method, it will be experimental. If it observes classroom behavior without intervention, it's observational. Next, outline your participants if you have any. Be sure to describe your sample, include how many participants were selected, their characteristics, and any inclusion or exclusion criteria. For instance, if you're studying high school students, you should mention the age range, gender distribution, and any specific requirements for participating in the study. Then, explain your data collection methods. Here, you should detail the tools or techniques you use to gather data. For example, if you conducted surveys, describe the questions and format. If you use sensors or software, explain how they were employed in your research. Lastly, discuss your analysis methods. This section outlines how you analyze the data you collected. Be specific about the techniques you use. Whether it's statistical tests, qualitative coding, or machine learning algorithms, make sure the methods are appropriate for your research question. For instance, if you're comparing two groups, you might use a t-test or ANOVA to assess differences. In summary, your methodology should walk the reader through each step of your research process, ensuring it's detailed enough for someone else to replicate. Next is the results section, which is where you present the data and findings of your research. The purpose here is to clearly and objectively show the outcomes of your study without interpreting or drawing conclusions, as you need to save that for the discussion section. When structuring your results, consider the following. First, make good use of tables and figures. Visual aids like tables, graphs, and charts can make your data more accessible to your audience. For example, if you're showing statistical results, a graph can make trends easier to see, while a table allows you to present exact values. Make sure each visual is clearly labeled and easy to understand. Next, focus on concise text. Describe the key findings in a straightforward manner, highlighting what the data shows without unnecessary detail. For instance, instead of saying the mean score for Group A increased by 25.4% following the intervention, or Group B's mean score only increased by 8.2%, you could say Group A showed a 25% improvement compared to Group B's 8% improvement. Finally, maintain objectivity. The results section is not the place to interpret your findings. Simply present the data as it is without drawing any conclusions or discussing its implications. This will come in the discussion section. Your job here is to give the reader a clear understanding of what the data shows on its own. Let's now talk about the discussion section. This section is where you finally interpret your results and place them in the broader context of your field. The purpose of this section is to analyze the significance of your findings, discuss their broader implications, and acknowledge any limitations in your study. Let's break it down. First, focus on interpretation. This is where you analyze the significance of your findings and how they relate to your original research question or hypothesis. Did your results support or refute your hypothesis? For example, if you hypothesized that AI-driven learning tools would improve student engagement, did the data confirm this? Next, discuss the implications of your research. Consider how your findings contribute to the broader field and what the practical applications they may have. For instance, if your study shows that AI tools can significantly boost student engagement, this could have implications for how educators design future classrooms and curriculums. Make sure to explain how your work adds to the ongoing conversation in your discipline. Then, address any limitations in your study. No study is perfect, so it's important to acknowledge areas where your research may have fallen short or encountered challenges. This could include things like sample size and limitations, potential biases, or constraints in your data collection methods. After acknowledging these limitations, suggest how future research could address them. In terms of structure, start by relating your findings to your hypothesis. Discuss whether your results support or contradict your original hypothesis and explain why. Then move into a comparison with previous studies. Compare your results with existing literature to highlight any similarities or differences. This can help show how your studies fit within or challenges the current body of knowledge. Finally, suggest areas for future research. Based on your findings, outline potential directions or future studies that could build on your work. This shows that your research not only answers questions, but also opens the door for further investigation. In summary, this section should allow you to interpret your results, discuss their broader significance, and identify avenues for future research. Finally, let's talk about the conclusion. It is your chance to wrap up your work and leave a lasting impression on your readers. Let's break it down. First, in terms of purpose, the conclusion serves two main functions. The first is to summarize the key findings from your research. Recap the most important points and make sure you address how they relate to your research question or hypothesis. The second function is to discuss the implications of your findings. Consider what the results mean for the field and any practical applications. For example, if your research on AI-driven learning tools shows significant improvements in student engagement, what could this mean for educators and policymakers? In terms of structure, start by providing a recap of your research. Summarize your main findings and discuss how they connect to your hypothesis and research question. This helps reinforce the core message of your study. Then discuss the significance of your work. Explain why your findings matter, both in the context of the research field and in practical terms. You can also suggest directions for future research, identifying any gaps or limitations in your study that could be explored further. You can also suggest directions for future research, identifying any gaps or limitations in your study that could be explored further. This shows that your work contributes to ongoing academic inquiry. In simple terms, the conclusion is where you bring your research full circle, restating your key findings and explaining their broader significance. Now, let's talk about formatting guidelines. When writing a paper, it's important to follow the proper formatting guidelines. There are several common formatting styles that you'll encounter, and the specific guidelines can vary depending on the journal or institution you're submitting to. There are two very common formatting styles. First, we have APA, which stands for the American Psychological Association style. This is typically used in social sciences, psychology, and education. APA has specific rules for citations, references, and overall paper structure, such as using a title page, running head, and in-text citations that include the author's last name and year of publication. Next is MLA, or the Modern Language Association style, which is commonly used in the humanities such as literature, arts, and philosophy. MLA focuses on a simpler format, often require in-text citations with the author's last name and page number, and a works cited page at the end of the paper. The importance of proper formatting cannot be overstated. Formatting helps ensure that your research is presented clearly and professionally, making it easier for readers to follow your arguments. It also ensures that your work adheres to the academic standards required by journals or institutions. Remember, as stated before, formatting guidelines can vary from journal to journal. If you're planning to submit your research to a specific journal, be sure to check their submission guidelines very carefully. Some journals may have very specific requirements for formatting that differ from standard styles like APA or MLA. When formatting your paper and managing citations, there are several useful tools available to help you stay organized and accurate. Let's go over a few key ones. So first, there is Zotero. Zotero is a free reference manager that helps you collect, organize, cite, and share research. You can use it easily to save articles, create folders for different research topics, and generate citations in various styles, making it a great all-around tool for managing your sources. Next is EndNote. EndNote is another reference management software that helps you store and manage your citations. It's particularly useful if you're handling large-scale research projects, as it integrates with other tools and databases, making it easier to keep track of all your references in one place. Lastly, we have Citation Machine. This is an online tool that allows you to generate citations in multiple styles, such as APA, MLA, and more. It's a quick and simple way to ensure that your citations are properly formatted, especially if you're working across different styles. You can find it online at Citation Machine. These tools can save you time and ensure that your research is properly formatted, no matter what citation style you're using. For guidelines on the formatting styles, you can always look up the specific websites for the rules. Now, let's talk about some general tips I have on writing. First is to be direct. You should keep your language straightforward and to the point. Avoid unnecessary complexity or technical jargon unless it's truly important to your topic. Simple language often conveys your message more effectively. Second, stay focused. Every sentence in your paper should have a clear purpose. Each sentence should contribute to your argument, analysis, or research objectives. If a sentence doesn't serve a purpose or advance to your main points, consider removing it. For example, if a sentence repeats information from earlier or doesn't add value, it might be unnecessary. Third, avoid redundancy. Cut out unnecessary clutter in your writing. Eliminate repetitive ideas, phrases, or words. Concise writing helps keep your reader's attention and ensures your points come across clearly. For example, instead of saying "in order to," simply just say "to." Being concise makes your writing sharper. Fourth, revise and edit. Writing is a process and revisions are important. Proofread your paper multiple times, but focus on different aspects each time. For example, on one read-through, you can focus on grammar, on another clarity, and on another structure. While tools like Grammarly are helpful, manual review is key to making sure there's context-specific clarity and coherence in your writing. Lastly, use active voice. Active voice makes your writing more direct and engaging. It often results in shorter, clearer sentences that are easier for your audience to follow. For example, saying, "The researchers conducted the experiment" is more dynamic than "the experiment was conducted by the researchers." So now is the conclusion. Here are a few key takeaways to remember when writing your research paper. First, focus on structuring your paper. A well-structured paper enhances the clarity and impact of your research. Each section from the introduction to the conclusion serves a specific purpose. This structure helps guide the reader through your work in a logical and coherent way, making your arguments and findings easier to follow. Next, remember the importance of following formatting guidelines. Whether you're using APA, MLA, or another style, adhering to the required format is essential for maintaining professionalism and consistency throughout your paper. Proper formatting also ensures that your work is easier to read and understand, which is important for peer reviewers and your audience. Finally, prioritize writing clearly and concisely. Clear and concise writing ensures that your ideas are communicated effectively. Avoid unnecessary jargon or overly complex language as stated before. Stay focused on your main points and make sure each sentence, again, contributes to your overall argument. This will make your paper more compelling and easier to read. By keeping these takeaways in mind, you'll be able to create a research paper that is more well-structured, professionally formatted, and clearly written. As we wrap up, here are some concluding thoughts that I have on some final points to keep in mind. First, develop your skills. Writing a well-structured research paper is a skill that improves with practice. The more you write, the more intuitive it will become. Don't expect perfection right away. Just focus on continuous improvement. Second, stay patient and persistent. Writing a research paper can be challenging, especially at first. Don't get discouraged by initial setbacks. With consistent effort, you'll find that organizing your thoughts and presenting them clearly will become second nature. Lastly, use feedback. Don't be afraid to seek feedback from peers, mentors, or instructors. Constructive criticism is invaluable in helping you refine your writing and enhance your skills over time. Learning from others' perspectives can significantly improve the clarity and impact of your research. Remember, research writing is a journey, and with patience and effort, you'll continue to grow and improve. Thank you for watching, and I hope this video has been helpful in guiding you through the process of writing a basic research paper.